The Great Sea in the Wind Waker is vast, mysterious, and filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. But one of the greatest mysteries isn't about treasure or lost ruins. It's about people who once lived in Hyrule. Three ancient races that played a crucial role in Hyrule's history. The Zora, the Gorons, and the Gerudo are all nearly absent in this world. The Zora, the guardians of Hyrule's waters, are nowhere to be found, despite the entire world being covered in endless ocean. The Gorons, a once thriving civilization, are reduced to just 3 wandering merchants. In the Gerudo, they seem to have vanished without a trace. So what happened to them? Did they die out? Did they evolve? Were they wiped out by something more sinister? Join me as we dive into one of The Legend of Zelda's most fascinating mysteries, the disappearance of Hyrule's lost races. If there was one race that should have thrived in a flooded world, it was the Zora. These aquatic beings were perfectly suited for an oceanic environment. Yet by the time of the Wind Waker, they were completely gone. But they weren't erased, they changed. In the game, we meet the Rito, a race of bird-like people who live on Dragon Roost Island. At first, they seem entirely unrelated to the Zora, but then we learn about Medli, a young Rito who is destined to become a sage. Later in the game, Medli meets the spirit of an ancient sage, a Zora. This confirms that the Rito descended from the Zora, meaning the Zora didn't vanish, they evolved. But why? Why would a water-based species need to evolve into birds, of all things? One of the most common theories is that the Zora were forced to evolve. The Great Flood turned Hyrule into a saltwater ocean, and the Zora, being freshwater creatures, may have struggled to survive. If their bodies couldn't handle the salt water, their only option was adaptation, and over time, they transformed into the Rito. But what if there's another reason? What if they didn't evolve naturally, but were changed by the gods? Remember, the King of Hyrule wanted to keep his kingdom buried beneath the waves, ensuring that no one would ever rediscover the secrets of old Hyrule. But the Zora, being expert swimmers, could have easily explored the sunken land. Could the gods have intervened, transforming the Zora into a race that could no longer dive into the depths? Then there's Valu, the great dragon who grants the Rito their wings. In Ocarina of Time, the Zora had their own guardian, Lord Jabu Jabu. But by Wind Waker, Jabu Jabu is nowhere to be found. In the Rito, now follow a completely new deity. Was this part of the gods' plan? Did they erase the Zora's connection to the water on purpose? Or could there be another group of Zora hidden away in some deep, unknown part of the Great Sea? After all, in Breath of the Wild, the Zora still exist, proving that they didn't all evolve into the Rito. Could some Zora have refused the transformation, instead choosing to remain hidden beneath the waves? The game never tells us, leaving the fate of the Zora an open-ended mystery. Unlike the Zora, the Gorons didn't completely vanish, but they almost did. In the Wind Waker, the only Gorons we see are 3 wandering merchants, traveling the Great Sea in search of trade. That's it. No Goron village. No sign of a thriving Goron society. Just 3 individuals. So what happened? The Gorons are known for their resilience. They don't need traditional food, since they eat rocks. And they're incredibly tough, capable of surviving extreme conditions. So why didn't they adapt to the new world like the Rito did? One theory is that the flood destroyed their home. The Gorons have always lived in mountainous regions, places like Death Mountain or Snowhead. If the floodwaters rose high enough, even the tallest mountains may have been swallowed by the sea, leaving the Gorons without a home. Another theory, they went underground. In Breath of the Wild, we learned that Gorons can survive deep within caves, even building entire underground settlements. Could it be that the Wind Waker's Gorons retreated beneath the earth, forming a hidden society that we never get to see? Or could it be that the Gorons were simply dying out? The fact that we only see 3 Gorons in Wind Waker suggests that their population is dangerously low. If they couldn't adapt to the Great Sea, they may have slowly declined, their numbers dwindling over time. If that's the case, then Wind Waker's timeline may mark the beginning of the end for the Goron race. Out of all of the missing races, the Gerudo are the most mysterious. Unlike the Zora and Gorons, there is no trace of them in Wind Waker. No ruins, no mentions, nothing. It's almost as if they were erased. In Ocarina of Time, the Gerudo were a powerful desert-dwelling race, known for their warriors and their connection to Ganondorf. But by the Wind Waker, they are completely gone. So what happened? One theory is that they simply died out. Gerudo only give birth to 1 male every 100 years, and without a stable population, they may have gone extinct after the flood. Another possibility the Hyrulean monarchy saw them as a threat, and when Ganondorf was sealed away, the Gerudo may have been hunted down to prevent future offsprings and uprisings. Or did they just change like the Zora? Some fans believe that Tetra and her pirate crew are the descendants of the Gerudo. Their rebellious nature, their seafaring skills, and even the appearance bear striking similarities. Could it be that the Gerudo adapted to the Great Sea, becoming the first pirates of the New World? If so, then the Wind Waker doesn't just tell the story of Hyrule's lost past, it shows how people endured, even after everything that they knew was gone. The Great Flood didn't just drown the Kingdom of Hyrule, it buried its history. We often think about the lost races as vanished, but what if their stories were erased over time? Let's think about this. By the time of the Wind Waker, very few characters even remember Hyrule. The islands of the Great Sea have been cut off from their past, and much of what was once known has faded into legend. So it's entirely possible that the Zora, Gorons, and Gerudo did not survive in some form, but their existence was simply forgotten. The only remaining Gorons are merchants. The Rito no longer remember their Zora ancestors, and the Gerudo's disappearance is never acknowledged. But did the gods wipe away their history on purpose? Was this part of maintaining the Great Sea's new order? Or is it just the natural effect of time erasing a once great civilization? Whatever the answer, it's clear that the Wind Waker presents a world where knowledge of the past has been initially buried. Whatever the answer, it's clear that the Wind Waker presents a world where knowledge of the past has been intentionally buried, making it even harder to uncover the fate of these lost races. If anyone might hold the answers to these disappearances, it's Ganondorf. We know the Wind Waker takes place in a world where Hyrule was sealed beneath the ocean, and Ganondorf was left imprisoned for centuries. But here's the thing, the Gerudo were his people. If they had survived, wouldn't they have tried to find him? Wouldn't there be some trace of their efforts to reclaim the Lost King? The fact that no Gerudo remained suggests that something happened to them long before Ganondorf ever broke free. But what if he was responsible? Ganondorf has always been a conqueror, someone who takes power by force. If the Gerudo did survive the flood, it is possible that Ganondorf used them to rebuild his power. Could the Gerudo have fought alongside him, only to be wiped out when his forces were defeated? Or worse, could he have sacrificed them in his pursuit of domination? Ganondorf's obsession with Hyrule is clear, but the fact that he never once mentions his own people raises a disturbing question. Did he abandon them? Perhaps in his eyes, the Gerudo were no longer important. This could explain why no Gerudo remained. Their own leader may have cast them aside in his quest for ultimate power. With everything we've discussed, there's still one big question left. Could the Zora, Gorons, or Gerudo still exist somewhere in the Wind Waker's world? The answer, possibly. First, let's talk about the Zora. If any Zora did refuse to evolve into Rito, where would they have gone? The only possible location would be deep underwater, hidden away from the rest of the world. But if they do exist somewhere beneath the Great Sea, they remain completely undiscovered. Then there's the Gorons. The presence of 3 Goron merchants suggests that there is a larger population somewhere. These merchants don't just appear out of nowhere. They must have come from somewhere. Could there have been a hidden Goron colony on a distant undiscovered island? And finally, the Gerudo. This is where things get really tricky. Unlike the Zora and Gorons, there is no physical evidence of the Gerudo in the Wind Waker. No ruins, no mentions, nothing. So if they do exist, they are either hiding very well, or they are completely wiped out. However, if we look in the Breath of the Wild, we know that the Gerudo do still exist in later timelines. Could it be that some of them survived the Wind Waker's era, waiting in exile until the Great Sea changed again? While there's no way to know for sure, one thing is clear. If these races did survive, they're keeping their existence a well-guarded secret. So, what can we take away from this? The Great Flood didn't just change the world, it erased the past. The Zora evolved, the Gorons scattered, and the Gerudo disappeared entirely. Whether it was divine intervention, or natural selection, or even something more sinister, the world of the Wind Waker is built on history that has been deliberately buried. But the beauty of Zelda lore is that nothing is ever truly forgotten. Maybe one day, a future Zelda game will give us answers, revealing what really happened to the lost races of Hyrule. But until then, we can only speculate, piece together the clues, and keep searching for the truth. Thanks for watching. If you truly enjoyed this deep dive into the Zelda lore, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. What do you think happened to these lost races? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching.